Good morning, all of you. In previous class, we have seen what about the protein. That protein contains monomers amino acids. Okay, that protein contains monomers amino acids. Amino acids are of two types. Those are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Okay, now let us see the tabular column. See to that one: glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, arginine, lysine, glutamic acid, aspartic acid, glutamine, asparagine, threonine, serine, cytosine, methionine, phenylalanine, tyrosine, tryptophan, histidine, proline. Okay, these are all 20 amino acids in tabular column of your textbook they give. Okay, now if you didn't receive the textbook, my suggestion is you can download chapter wise or whole book, CBSE 12th class whole book. You can just download. I hope, sorry, you got already. Sorry, ma. You got already textbooks. Okay, in the textbooks, they give the table column. In that, they mentioned with star marks. Some amino acids they mentioned with star marks. Those star marks amino acids are essential amino acids. Star mark amino acids are essential amino acids. Those star mark amino acids are valine, leucine, isoleucine, arginine, lysine, like that you can see. Okay, na? Those are about yesterday's topic I have discussed with you. Now I read what are the amino acids present, ma. After that, formation of deuterium. Okay, classification of amino acids we have seen. Okay, after that, how that structure of proteins are explained. We have seen peptide bond. Correct? We have seen peptide bond. How the peptide bond is formed? Peptide bond is formed between two amino acids. That is called dipeptide. One peptide bond is present between two amino acids. Two peptide bonds are present between three amino acids. Like that polypeptide. Polypeptide is constituting the protein. Okay. Here onwards some theory part will be there. That's why I am just seeing the textbook and I am explaining now. Okay. Now let us see. If a third amino acid combines to a dipeptide, the product is called a tripeptide. A tripeptide contains three amino acids linked by two peptide bond linkages, peptide linkages. Similarly, when 4, 5 or 6 amino acids are linked, the respective products are known as tetrapeptide, pentapeptide or hexapeptide respectively. When the number of such amino acids is more than 10, then the products are called polypeptides. Okay, a polypeptide with more than 100 amino acids residues having molecular mass higher than 10,000 units is called a protein. However, the distinction between a polypeptide and a protein is not very sharp. Polypeptides with fewer amino acids are likely to be called proteins if they ordinarily have a well-defined conformation of a protein, such as insulin, which contains 51 amino acids. Insulin is the hormone, you know. It will be just breaking that. 1 minute, no? It will be breaking the carbohydrate, okay, into energy, carbon dioxide, water, and energy. That insulin is the hormone which is secreted in our body only. That insulin contains 51 amino acids. Okay, ma? That is about yesterday's concept we have seen. Now, today we will just go through what about the classification of these proteins. Okay, ma? Next. Proteins can be classified into two types on the basis of their molecular shape. Depending on their molecular shape, proteins are classified into two types. Those two types are fibrous proteins and globular proteins. Proteins are classified into two types depending on their molecular shape. Okay, those two are fibrous and molecular globular proteins. First one, fibrous proteins. When the polypeptide chains run parallel and are held together by hydrogen and disulfide bonds. See, This is one polypeptide. This is another polypeptide. Okay, these polypeptide bonds are formed by hydrogen bond, are present with hydrogen bond, or disulfide bond. Disulfide bond means here one S, 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 like this. Between one chain and another chain, two sulfur atoms will be there. Okay, disulfide bonds, like that. This one polypeptide chain and another polypeptide chain are present with hydrogen bonds or disulfide bonds. Such proteins are generally insoluble in water. These fibrous proteins are insoluble in water. Then this is forming like a fiber-like structure. These are forming like a fiber-like structure. That's why these are called fibrous proteins. Some common examples are keratin, which is present in hair, wool, silk, and myosin, myosin, myosin present in muscles, etc. This is about fibrous proteins. Next, coming with globular proteins. Let us see. The structure results when the chains of polypeptides coil around to give a spherical shape. Like this. Polypeptide chain is there, na? That polypeptide chain is not straight chain. Okay, it is getting coiled. Suppose earphones are there, our earphones. Earphones, when we open and keep it like straight chain, then it is example for fibrous protein. Same earphones, if you keep it in somewhere and if you search along with other ways, it will be getting coiled. Okay, that coiled structure is globular protein. Okay, now let us see the next one. The structure results when the chains of polypeptides coil around to give a spherical shape. These are usually soluble in water. These are soluble in water. Soluble in water. Insulin and albumins are the common examples of globular proteins. Insulin and albumin are the common examples of globular proteins. These are general classification of proteins, fibrous proteins and globular proteins. Okay. Now next topic, that is structure and shape of proteins, can be studied at 4 different levels. Structure and shape of proteins can be studied at 4 different levels. That 4 different levels structures we have to see now. Okay, let us see that one. Shall I rub this one? See, structure and shape of proteins can be studied at 4 different levels, that is primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary, each level being more complex than the previous one. Now let us see primary structure of proteins. First one. See that one, proteins may have one or more polypeptide chains. Proteins may have one or more polypeptide chains. Each polypeptide in a protein has amino acids linked with each other in a specific sequence, and it is this sequence of amino acids that is said to be the primary structure of that protein. Okay, see, one straight chain. This is simply primary structure. This is simple one. This is one amino acid, another amino acid present with peptide bond, another amino acid present with another peptide. Like that it is continued to form a long chain. Okay, polypeptide. This is totally polypeptide. simple structure. Primary structure is simple structure. Okay, present with straight line, that is called primary structure of proteins. Now again I am reading ma. See, proteins may have one or more polypeptide chains. Each polypeptide in a protein has amino acids linked with each other in a specific sequence, and it is this sequence of amino acids that is said to be the primary structure. That is, the sequence of amino acids creates a and if the sequence of amino acids that is said to be the primary structure of the protein, any change in this primary structure, that is the sequence of amino acids, creates a different protein. If any different sequence is happened, automatically protein structure is getting differed, and that is belonging to another protein. Okay, this is about primary structure, simple one only. Next, secondary structure. First I will read this one, let us see. Secondary structure of proteins. The secondary structure of protein refers to the shape in which a long polypeptide chain can exist. A long polypeptide. Everything it is polypeptide only, no problem. Okay. A long polypeptide chain can exist. They are found to exist in two different types of structures. Okay. Secondary structure is happened with two different structures now. Those are alpha helix and beta pleated. Secondary structure is of two types. Again, those two types are alpha helix and beta pleated. Alpha helix and beta pleated. Now let us see continuation. These structures arise due to the regular folding of the backbone of the polypeptide chain due to hydrogen bonding between C double bond O and NH groups of the polypeptide. Okay, one example, let us see. This is straight chain, na? Okay, now like this polypeptide is there. This is straight chain. Okay, ma. Now this is like coiled, not fully coiled, ma. Like this, you know, you understood, I think, like spring. You will make a spiral binding, na. In that spiral binding, that spring will be there, na. Like that same representation. Okay, now what is going to be? Suppose here we have C double bond O. Next bond NH. Next again C double bond O. Again NH. Again C double bond O. Like that here coiling we will get here somewhere NH. Correct, ma? See, the C double bond O, again NH, again C double bond O, again NH, again C double bond O. Like that, actually in between NH and C double bond O, that polypeptide, remaining particles are there definitely, but majorly we are depending on that C double bond O NH, that is called peptide bond. Is it correct? Now C double bond O which is present initially and NH which is present here, oxygen here is there, na? This oxygen and hydrogen present here, it will form hydrogen bond. Next, this hydrogen and this oxygen present with here, it will form hydrogen bond. Like that, here C double bond O is there, here NH is there. These two will be involved in hydrogen bond. Like that, hydrogen bond. Like that, it is present. Okay, this is called alpha helix structure. This is called alpha helix structure. All of you are clear now? Next we have to see beta pleated structure. So secondary structures two types, alpha helix and beta pleated. This is alpha helix. In your textbook they have drawn like this. C double bond O here and NH here will be involved in bond, sigma bond. Like that it will be. Actually like ribbon. Ribbon, if you do like this, how it will be getting, like that it is. Same. Okay, this is about alpha helix structure. Next, beta pleated structure we will see. See, alpha helix. Like this I have shown. Now what I am going to do? I am going to stretch this one. Then it will be happened as lines. Previously it might be three-dimensional. Inside ring, outside ring, inside ring, again outside ring. Like that there is a chance of three-dimensional. Are you understanding? That spring is in a spiral binding spring, like that you can imagine. Now that spiral binding spring I make extension and made into plane. Made into plane like this. This is one spring, one polypeptide. Like that another spring is there. This spring also I extended. Next, another spring. To maximum extent I extended. I extended the alpha helix structures. These are all 1 alpha helix, 2, 3. Like that I extended and these are present like this. These are in plane only. This is not a three-dimensional one. Okay. Now somewhere here C double bond Y is there, and on second one somewhere we have NH. These two are bonded with hydrogen bond. Here somewhere NH. Here somewhere C double bond O. These two are bonded with hydrogen bond. Next C double bond O, NH. Next NH, C double bond O. Like this. One sheet-like structure will be happened. One sheet-like structure. This is called beta pleated structure. This is called beta pleated structure. Sheet-like, plane completely three-dimensional. If you stretch that one, it will become plane. Like this, it is becoming sheet-like structure. That is called beta pleated sheet-like structure. Okay, observe the diagram, all of you. In your textbook also they have drawn. Once if you see that one, you will understand easily. Okay, now I will read the matter. Let us see. Secondary structure of proteins. The secondary structure of proteins refers to the shape in which a long polypeptide chain can exist. They are found to exist in two different types of structures. Those are alpha helix and beta pleated sheet structure. These structures arise due to the regular folding of the backbone of the polypeptide chain due to hydrogen bonding between C double bond or NH groups of the peptide bond. Next, alpha helix is one of the most common ways in which a polypeptide chain forms all possible hydrogen bonds by twisting into a right angle screw helix with the group of each amino acid residue hydrogen bonded to the C double bond O, NH group of each amino acid residue hydrogen bonded to the C double bond O of an adjacent turn of the helix, as shown in figure 14.1. Once go through the figure, I think you will be clear with that one. Next, in beta pleated sheet structures, all peptide chains are stretched out. All peptide chains. This is one helix. This is one helix. Like this, these are present in alpha helix structure. Now coming to beta pleated, all alpha helix structures are extended, means stretched. Okay. In beta pleated sheet structure, all peptide chains are stretched out to nearly maximum extension and then laid side by side forming like a plane, okay, which are held together by intermolecular hydrogen bond between one molecule and another molecule. Intermolecular hydrogen bonds. The structure resembles the pleated folds of drapery and therefore is known as beta pleated sheet. Okay, this is about secondary structure. Are you clear, ma? Primary structure, next secondary structure, next coming to tertiary structure. All of you see to that. What about the tertiary structure? Tertiary structure of proteins. The tertiary structure of proteins represents overall folding of the polypeptide chains, that is further folding of the secondary structures. Secondary structures are there na, they will be further folded. Then we will get little bit more complicated structure, that is tertiary structure. Okay. Tertiary structures of proteins represents overall folding of the polypeptide chains, that is further folding of the secondary structure. It gives rise to two major molecular shapes, those are fibrous and globular. Okay, two major molecular shapes, those are fibrous and globular. The main forces which stabilize the secondary and tertiary structures of proteins are, actually secondary structure they included here itself, here also. Okay, the main forces which stabilize the secondary and tertiary structures of proteins are hydrogen bonds, disulfides. We have seen hydrogen bonds, disulfides. If no electronegative atom is there, okay, and sulfurs are not there, van der Waals forces also will be existed. Okay, so structures of proteins are hydrogen bonds, disulfide linkages, van der Waals, and electrostatic force of attraction. Even there is a chance of electrostatic force of attraction also. These are all present between one polypeptide chain and another polypeptide chain. Okay, here one polypeptide chain and another polypeptide chain. In beta plated structure we have hydrogen bonds na. Like that in some other proteins we have disulfide bonds also. In some other proteins we have van der Waals forces, and in some other proteins we may have electrostatic force of attraction also. Okay, this is about tertiary structure. Next, coming to quaternary structure. Some of the proteins are composed of two or more polypeptide chains referred to as subunits. The spatial arrangement of these subunits with respect to each other is known as quaternary structure. Okay, a diagrammatic representation. Actually there is no much information about quaternary structure, but diagrammatic representation they have given. See, a diagrammatic representation of all these four structures is given in figure 14.3, where each colored ball represents an amino acid. Each colored ball represents one amino acid. Okay, in the form of this diagram they gave me. Let us see this diagram, all of you. They gave four structures: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Primary straight chain they gave. Okay, secondary somewhat helix like that they gave. Tertiary, the two helixes are joined like that they gave, and quaternary little bit more complication is happened. Every ball like representation represents one amino acid ma. Every ball like representation represents one amino acid. Okay, sorry. I hope you are clear about these primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary structures. Okay ma. Next, structure of proteins completed and molecular shape also. Depending on four levels we have seen, those are primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary structures, like that we have seen. Finally, final subheading present in proteins, that is denaturation of proteins. What is that, man? Denaturation of proteins. Let us see. I will read that one and we will understand. Okay. Protein found in a biological system with a unique three-dimensional structure and biological activity is called a native protein. When a protein in its native form is subjected to physical change like change in temperature or chemical change like change in pH, physical change like change in temperature or chemical change like change in pH. Okay. Hydrogen bonds are disturbed. Due to this, globules unfold and helix get uncoiled. Globules get unfold and helix get uncoiled and protein loses its biological activity. This is called denaturation of protein. Protein loses its biological activity. That process is called denaturation of protein. Okay, example. During denaturation, secondary and tertiary structures are destroyed, but primary structure remains intact, because this is the least structure, na, primary structure. That's why it will be remain like that only, but secondary and tertiary structures will be damaged, destroyed. Okay, the coagulation of egg white on boiling is a common example of denaturation. Generally, in early classes we might have heard that egg yolk is a liquid. When we heat that liquid, generally that liquid must be converted to gas, like that we heard. But this egg yolk, when it is heated on pan, it is not converting into gas, then it is converted to solid. Why it is happening? Actually, it is a protein one. Even though it is in liquid state, it is a protein. In that egg yolk, it is happened with denaturation. Okay, that protein globule is getting destroyed and it is going to be converted to that solid state, omelette. Okay. The coagulation of egg white on boiling is a common example of denaturation. Another example is curdling of milk. In making that heating of egg yolk, what is happening? Change in temperature is happening, physical change. Now coming to this curdling of milk, their pH is, we are going to affect the pH. Because of that also protein is getting destroyed. See, another example is curdling of milk, which is caused due to the formation of lactic acid by the bacteria present in milk. By the bacteria present in milk, lactic acid is going to be formed. Okay, this process is called denaturation of protein. This is very important. Definitely it might be asked. Chances are there, major chances are there. Okay, so completely we can conclude this denaturation of protein as our biological activity of protein is going to be destroyed by change in pH, like physical property or chemical property. Okay, ma'am? This is about denaturation. By this we completed proteins. Next, enzymes. Very simple one only. After that, vitamins. These are all theory parts only, ma'am. I will just read that one. You will understand easily. Next, structure-wise, we will be contained by nucleic acids. Hardly by next class we will complete this chapter. Okay, ma'am? Okay, let us see what about these enzymes. Life is possible due to the coordination of various chemical reactions in living organisms. An example is the digestion of food. Life is possible due to the coordination of various chemical reactions in living organisms. An example is the digestion of food, absorption of inappropriate molecules, and ultimately production of energy. This process involves a sequence of reactions, and all these reactions occur in the body under very mild conditions. This occurs with the help of certain biocatalysts called enzymes. Biology students you might have known very well. Those are biocatalysts which are helping to undergo chemical reactions in our body. Those are naturally secreted by, those are called enzymes. Okay, now almost all the enzymes are globular proteins. Enzymes are nothing but globular proteins only. Enzymes are very specific for a particular reaction. Specific means if you use one enzyme for one particular reaction, that is catalyst only, same catalyst cannot be used for other reaction. That is specific. Suppose one student is he is perfect in education, but that student might not be in other sports. He is very specific. Okay, like that here, these enzymes are very specific in nature. That means if they are useful for one particular reaction, those are not useful for other reactions. Those are not useful for other reactions. That is the meaning of, okay, specific in nature. Suppose, okay, 1 minute, ma. Suppose example, ammonia is manufactured by the reaction of nitrogen and hydrogen in the presence of iron as the catalyst. Okay, same iron catalyst might not be useful for other reactions. Here that is not biocatalyst. For understanding purpose only I am telling all of you. Okay, now let us see what about this enzymes continuation. Please 1 second, ma. Okay, see. This occurs with the help of certain biocatalysts called enzymes. Almost all the enzymes are globular proteins. Enzymes are very specific for a particular reaction and for a particular substrate. They are generally named after the compound or class of compounds upon which they work. Okay, for example, the enzyme that catalyzes hydrolysis of maltose into glucose. Hydrolysis of maltose into glucose is named as maltase. Maltase is the enzyme which converts maltose to glucose. You have seen the structure of maltose. It is a disaccharide with 2 glucose units. If it undergoes hydrolysis, we will get 2 glucose units. Sucrose, if it undergoes hydrolysis, we will get glucose and fructose. Like that, maltose will undergo hydrolysis to form 2 glucose units in the presence of maltase enzyme. Okay. Sometimes enzymes are also named after the reaction where they are used. For example, enzymes which catalyze the oxidation of one substrate with simultaneous reduction of another substrates are named as oxidoreductase enzymes. The ending of the name of the enzyme is ASE. Definitely it is ended with ASE. Okay, next. Mechanism of enzyme action. Enzymes are needed only in small quantities for the progress of a reaction, similar to the action of chemical catalysts. Enzymes are said to reduce the magnitude of activation energy. In chemical kinetics we have seen these catalysts will reduce the activation energy. Okay, for example, activation energy for acid hydrolysis of sucrose. Acid hydrolysis of sucrose is 6.22 kilojoules per mole, while the activation energy is only 2.15 kilojoules per mole when hydrolyzed by the enzyme sucrase. Hydrolysis of sucrose will be happened in the presence of enzyme sucrase. Hydrolysis of maltose will be happened in the presence of enzyme maltase. Okay, mechanism for the enzyme action has been discussed in unit 5. That is in surface chemistry. We will see later at the time of surface chemistry we will see that one. Okay, that is about enzymes. Completed enzymes also. Next, vitamins. Vitamins is also fully theory part only. So we will complete this vitamins and we will stop today. We are remained with nucleic acids and hormones. By next class we will complete those two. Okay. Classification of vitamins. Vitamins are classified. 1 minute, sorry. It has been observed that certain organic compounds are required in small amounts in our diet, but their deficiency causes specific diseases. These compounds are called vitamins. Most of the vitamins cannot be synthesized in our body, but plants can synthesize almost all of them. Most of the vitamins cannot be synthesized in our body, but plants can synthesize almost all of them. So they are considered as essential food factors. Definitely they are required in our food. Okay. However, the bacteria of the gut can produce some of the vitamins required by us. All the vitamins are generally available in our diet. Different vitamins belong to various chemical classes and it is difficult to define. them on the basis of the structure. They are generally regarded as organic compounds required in the diet in small amounts to perform specific biological functions for normal maintenance of optimal growth and health of our organism. That is called vitamin. They, instead of giving any other definition, they define the vitamin in the form of general terms. Okay, that is the substance which is required in our diet, and okay, those are normal substances which are required in the diet to maintain the optimal growth of the health and maintenance of the body. Okay, some particular substances are required. Those particular substances are called vitamins. Okay, they gave the tabular column. The tabular column you can see in your textbook. And what are the vitamins, and what are the vitamins, in which source those vitamins are available, what are the deficiency diseases caused by the vitamins deficiency, all these things, what are the other names, all these things they gave. Okay, please refer to that tabular column. Okay, I will just go through that one. Just 1 second. Once just go through the table column which is given by vitamins. The main point here is the tabular column, vitamins, other names, vitamin B12, vitamin C, like that they gave vitamin C, ascorbic acid. In tabular column they gave every detail. Okay, those deficiency diseases caused by the vitamins they gave. Okay, those diseases are very important. Scurvy is caused by particular vitamin deficiency. Okay, like that, what are the bleeding gums? Bleeding gums is caused by particular vitamin deficiency. Okay, like this, particular diseases are caused by particular vitamin deficiency. Those are very important. You have to remember them. Okay, blindness is happened by vitamin A deficiency. Correct, ma? Like that, vitamin A is found in what are the food sources? Those are all given in the table column. Okay, ma, just 1 minute. I am going to see that one. I have no textbook, ma. Just I am referring through mobile. It is getting switched off automatically. It came out 1 minute. See, ma. Vitamins are classified into two groups depending upon their solubility in water or fat. Fat soluble vitamins. Vitamins which are soluble in fat and oils but insoluble in water are kept in this group. These are vitamins A, D, E and K. These are stored in liver and adipose tissues. Water soluble vitamins. B group vitamins and vitamin C are soluble in water. Okay, they are grouped together. Water soluble vitamins must be supplied regularly because they can be excreted through urine. They are dissolved in water, that's why. Water soluble vitamins must be supplied regularly in diet because they are readily excreted in urine and cannot be stored in our body. Some important, except vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is not soluble in water. Okay. Some important vitamins, their sources and their deficiency diseases. Vitamin A, fish, liver oils, carrots, butter and milk. Deficiency diseases. Xerophthalia, hardening of cornea of eye, night blindness. Vitamin A. Vitamin B1, thiamine. B2, riboflavin. B6, pyridoxine, convulsions. Okay. Beriberi is caused by vitamin B1 deficiency. Scurvy is caused by vitamin C deficiency, bleeding gums. Rickets, these are important mark. 1 mark for 1 mark. Bone deformities in children and osteomalacia, soft bones and joint pain in adults. This is caused by vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin E deficiency are increased fragility of RBCs and muscular weakness. Vitamin K, increased blood clotting time. Vitamin K, if it is not there in our body, it will take so much time to get blood clotted. Okay, these are the deficiencies caused by the vitamins. That tabular column they gave and the classification of vitamins they gave. Over. That vitamins over. Ma. We are remained with nucleic acids and hormones. That nucleic acids and hormones in next class we will complete that one. So by next class we will complete these biomolecules. After that we will go through one live session. Ma. After completion of that we will go through volume 1. Okay, this is about today's class. I hope you are clear about today's class, ma, all of you. Okay, concentrate whatever it is going on cleanly. First thing is you have to write the notes clearly, neatly. That is very important at the time of revision time. Okay, ma? Okay, thank you. Thank you all.